Hi, my name is Hajara Kweton, and this is part 2 of the video on legacy. I was saying in the earlier video, watch it, about it being my 18th wedding anniversary, and the thought on my mind has been a thought around inheritance, legacy, and heritage. And I'm sharing some of the legacies that I think it's important that we're considering as we're living our lives as a married couple to the benefit of our children. And so, the first legacy I talked about was the legacy of being, how we are, and how we pass that on to our children, whether we're intentionally passing it on or not, whether we think that we're actually doing this on purpose or not, which is why it is better to be intentional, because even if you're not being intentional, you are actually passing on a message, right? So you want to be sure that at least you're intentionally passing on what you want to pass on. So I wanted to talk about the legacy of health. I feel like one of the things that science, so that this is not even a feeling, one of the things that science has shown to us in recent times is that only 10% of most hereditary diseases are actually inherited. So 90% of that is actually the lifestyle that we've inherited from our, predecessors, the lifestyle that we've inherited. So whether it's that, in our family, we like bananas and we have bananas most evenings, which then means that we go to sleep with our blood sugar high and therefore increasing the chance of diabetes, stuff like that. So there's this story, and I'm sure you've heard, well, I hope you've heard it before, but if not, welcome to the story. There's this story of this lady who, she made the nicest leg of lamb at Thanksgiving every year, but she used to cut the leg of lamb into two and make them in two batches. And one day her mother-in-law was around and her husband was around, and she was telling her husband was like, "Oh, you make the best leg of lamb, but you always cut it into two. Why do you do that?" And she was like, "Well, mom is here. Let's ask mom, because this is how mom taught me to make it, and that this is how it is most delicious." And mom was like, "Oh yeah, you make it very well. It is delicious and all of that. But the only reason why I cut it into two when you were younger was that we had a small skillet. So only half of it will fit." So this lady had gone on to take what she had seen from mom as the way it is done, not understanding the reason why mom did it that way. So she's had a big skillet now, meaning she could have made that leg of lamb once, but she had been making it twice because her conclusion from her observation was not necessarily true. Wasn't a true interpretation of that situation, right? And I think that that's so important, because a lot of the time as kids, when we're looking up at the people ahead of us, we come to conclusions as to what we're seeing that might not necessarily be true at all. But from our minds, they look true based on the things that we've put together. And this ties back into our legacy of health, right? I think that we owe our children the duty to show them how to live well and how to live healthy, to be the gatekeepers of what comes into the house in terms of the food we eat, in terms of our mental health, in terms of how we worry, in terms of exercise, in terms of movement and all of that. I feel like we owe them that foundation that is healthy. And the only way to demonstrate that foundation to them is to actually be that way, so that they're not spending most of their life, when you've created wealth for them, taking care of the wealth, taking care of using the wealth to take care of their health, right? So I think that the legacy of health is important. And I don't just think it's the health in terms of just your physical health, but your mental health, in terms of being able to cope with life, in terms of drawing boundaries, in terms of ease of relationship, in terms of being. All of this would be important. Another legacy that I think is really important is the legacy of enterprise and wealth. I make candles with Owambe candles, which I love to make them. I don't know if you can see that candle over there. That one is made from hand-blown glass. But one day recently, I was thinking about it. My first introduction to wax was from my mom. My mom used to make adire Adire is an African, like type of fabric that you make, maybe with like white cotton material. You have blocks and designs, and you create like, you put them, the blocks in wax, and then you stamp it on the white fabric, then put the white fabric in different colors of dye, and you create beautiful materials on them. The beautiful thing about it is wherever the wax was, that place stays white because it wouldn't absorb color, right? And so the last part of making adire, as I remember it when I was young, was that they would then put what they had done into, I think, hot water to melt the wax after the patterns were on, or something like that. But it was as an adult, one day while making candles, that I thought, oh, this is not my first introduction to using wax. I remember seeing this as a child. So maybe one of the draws for me was that I had seen it as a child. Another thing that happened was my dad used to teach in universities and used to travel all over the world, the University of Bath, the University of Pittsburgh. He was an economist, so he is alive. I mean, when I say was, I'm talking about his career, and they used to have to travel a lot. But I think then, maybe even though they were traveling, the earnings weren't so much. And so my mom used to take this adire for sale. My dad used to teach, he used to work, he used to teach at these universities. He used to write for The Economist, the magazine. And what I took from that as a child was this ability to be multidextrous in terms of the work that I'm doing. So I'm a lawyer, I own Owambe candles, I own the audacity to sew, all of those things. And it is not strange to me when I see somebody doing 5, 6 things, maybe not running all themselves, but allowing themselves multiple expressions, because that's what I saw growing up. So I think the legacy of, and I'm not saying that every family has to have parents who are doing 4 or 5 things, but I think that legacy of enterprise, of hard work, of seeing, and back to the first video when I said, a lot of the time when there's an inheritance, it seems like starts to get lost from the 3rd generation. It's usually because the 1st generation is the one who's working from the ground. The next generation to that see them working from the ground and probably work with them to grow it. They are then educated to run it. But by the 3rd generation, that family has made wealth that the 3rd generation is now sort of free to do anything. And sometimes what happens with that wealth is that 3rd generation has no idea how to create it or how to sustain it. I'm going to end this particular video with a conversation by a president of the United States. I don't remember his name. I think he was the 75th president or something like that of the United States of America. But he said something along the lines of, I had to study politics and war so that the next generation can study science, medicine, technology, and whatever else. And they would study that so that the generation after can study arts, can study beauty, can study, do you see how the progression is? That the 1st generation is doing the hard work, studying politics, how to rule this place, how to get the most out of this place, and war, how to ensure that what I build, somebody else doesn't come to take. So that the other generation can study medicine, how we can live well, can study law, can study, all the things that stabilize our society, so that the next generation after that can study arts, can say they just want to travel, can say they want to be digital nomads, can say this, because all the things that ensure their security have been put in place. I think that that's a major conversation and consideration around legacy, right? So, those are the points I'm covering in this video. It will continue in the next one because I want to ensure we can follow. Please share with anyone who needs it. Do you like my outfit? I love it so much. It's by a Nigerian brand called Funke Adepoju. And see the best part of it? It twirls. Oh,